やべやべやべ。大変なことに。始まった。
And welcome to GGG Live. Today we're going to show you an exclusive reveal of Path of Exile Keepers of the Flame, which is coming out 1 week from now on October the 31st. Twitch drops are enabled on today's live stream, so you'll be able to claim your Hive-born crawler pet by following the instructions below. Without further ado, let's roll the trailer for Path of Exile Keepers of the Flame.
We, the Keepers of the Flame, serve the will of the Dreamer. His instructions whispered from beyond the wall of sleep. But now, the Hiveborn are here, on Rayclast, and they seek to poison our world. We must close their breaches, destroy their hives, slay their breach lords.
画質が
And by his gifts, the Dreamer provides.
専用3か。
They brought this war to our world.
ブリーチの完全リワークだな。
Whatever it takes.
なるほどね。ジェネシス3。ルーングラフト的なグラフツ。青と赤のやつがブラッドラインクラス。お、やっぱりトレードシステム来るんだね。やはりなるほど、そうですか。やはり来ますか。こんばんはいらっしゃいませ。
As you can see, this expansion is a true sequel to the Breach League, first introduced to the game in 2016. We felt like it was time to progress the story of Breach, bringing with it a slew of new updates to the base game. In today's stream, we'll take you on a deep dive into Path of Exile Keepers of the Flame, beginning with the League mechanic, covering all the fearsome challenges it presents.
いや、思ってたよりもだいぶでかそうだな、規模が。
After that, we'll dive into the new ascendancy options possible with Bloodline classes. Then we'll cover the much anticipated and synchronous trade system coming to Path of Exile 1. Afterwards, move into the new Uber Pinnacle bosses, how to access them, and some new drops worthy of the added difficulty. Finally, we'll cover some notable quality of life improvements before moving on to our supporter packs and challenge rewards. We'll then have a live Q&A session where Ziggy D will ask Path of Exile's game directors Mark and myself your questions from Twitch chat.
やっぱ GD のあれはあれだね、Q&A は。
At 11 a.m. New Zealand time or 3 p.m. Pacific. So let's get started. I'll hand things over to Mark to introduce the new league.
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts, game
ね
director on
え、
Path
来ましたね、やはり。
Breach is a beloved league that has had an iconic history in PoE. We intend to honor that
し
legacy
かしだいぶ
with
で
our
かそうだ
first
ぞ、
ever
コンテン
sequel
ツ内容が。
Keepers of the Flame. This develops every aspect of Breach, adding new layers to discover. Richer lore, scarier bosses, and entirely new mechanics. That said, this is still Breach. So you will still be opening breaches and slaying hordes of otherworldly monsters.
ブリーチの手に触って
Breach
開
lords
い
have
て
found
敵
the
が
means to
敵が出てくるの
stabilize
は
the
変わらない
connection
と。
between their realm and Rayclast. Now, with their grip tightening, we learn their true goal in our world: conquest. The threat they pose has now escalated to home soil. On the coast in Act 1, you'll encounter Aelith, the founder of the Keepers of the Flame.
エイロス。
This is a monastic order sworn to
新しい今回
defend
の NPC
Rayclast
か。
from the Breach Lords. The exit to the Mudflats has been barricaded by Hiveborn,
エイリ
breach
ス。
monsters that are working to claim every inch of Rayclast. Aelith can grant you a
グラフト
small
が、あ、やっぱあ
slice
そこに
of
入る
the
ん
power
だ。
of the flame, allowing you to blast away their barricade and move onwards. Once you enter the mudflats, you'll find it infested with breach monsters.
は
They
あ
appear to be constructing a kind of hive, creating strange shapes and structures that absolutely don't
いい
belong.
です
Time to purge them with fire.
ウェーブ
Aleph
5ま
needs
であ
you
る
to
のか
protect her as she empowers the flame to do so. Hold off the assault long enough, and she'll be able to demolish the hive with cleansing flame.
ブリーチハイブサクセスフリーデストロイドクラ
In
フトブラ
other
ッド
areas, the
6
gap between worlds is strained. Here, you'll find a more familiar encounter with a new twist. A massive breach hand sunders the space between dimensions, and touching it will open an unstable breach, causing monsters to flood in.
アンステーブルブリー
If you
チ
can slaughter them quickly
へ
enough,
ー
you can stabilize the breach. This brazen action can draw the attention of Vroon, Marshal of Zesht, who will do everything it
Ah.
can to stop you.
ゼシュとなって
Defeating this
る
boss will permanently seal the breach, severing another connection between the Breach Lord's world and Rayclast. These stabilized breaches are similar to what a breach once was, but with upgraded monsters, a success condition to shoot for, UI tracking to keep the player informed of their progress through the encounter, and satisfying feedback when you do manage to complete the encounter. We've taken all the lessons we've learned since the release of Breach 9 years ago and improved upon it in every way we can. However, much of the joy
今な
of
んか見
Breach
たこと
came
の
from
ない
its
リングかなんか
simplicity.
落ちてたな
While we want to modernize the mechanic, we don't want to undermine the core experience. You're still mostly just slaughtering hordes of enemies in a circle. Finally, in endgame areas you might run into breach constructions that have been left unopposed for too long, and have grown into their full twisted glory. Breach hives. Towering flesh-crafted cities in the sky. These are the visions of the Breach Lords made real in Rayclast.
ああゼシュとの神殿みたいな感じになってんな見た目が
You must raid and destroy these cities with the help of Aleph and her flame. In some of these hives, you may even encounter some of the Breach Lords
It's that
themselves,
was ツ
who
ル
will not be happy you're intruding on their
ツル
planned
だったも
conquest.
の
Now, let's talk loot. Of course, being an exile is hard work, and you're unlikely to help entirely out of the goodness of your
やっ
heart.
ぱりここ誰かゼシュとになる
Fortunately, Aleph has power
ストーリー
and
が
rewards aplenty,
流れが出てくるんだなきっ
born of
と
the breach realm itself, to offer you for your assistance. Help her, and she'll bring you to the monastery of the Keepers, the hallowed halls of her order. Here, you'll find the Genesis tree, the growing heart of the Keeper's power. On interacting with it, you'll find that this tree has a tree. That's right. It couldn't be Path of Exile unless the tree also had a tree. More importantly, the Genesis tree is an engine of unholy creation, and a profitable one. As you complete breach encounters and work more with Aleph, you'll be able to grow the Genesis tree larger and larger, sprouting additional limbs. Each of these limbs, you'll notice, has their own inventories. These can be used for an unusual method of crafting new items. With this system, you'll be able to grow currency, uniques, equipment, and a new kind of otherworldly item, grafts. Grafts are breach hands grown directly from the Genesis tree, born of the same flesh and sinew as the invading monsters. These fuse directly to your body, in a completely safe process. Don't worry about it. With grafts, you can harness the power of the breach. Some provide passive benefits like this, or this, but they can also grant a wide selection of powerful skills. These graft skills can provide a flexible way to fill gaps in your build, offering everything from damage to potent defensive buffs and crowd control. For example, the Battering All Graft will call massive arms to erupt from the earth,
は
stunning
何これ
all those they hit.
10万
For some additional pack
2921
clearing power, you could consider the Squalling Tool Graft. When commanded, this graft will cast
いやいや
darts
い
in
や
the
何
wind,
何これ何これ
creating a deadly
えぐ
ice
ない
tornado, which aggressively seeks enemies and fires off bursts of ricocheting projectiles when you critically strike with skills. For some further utility and a useful buff, try out the Storming Ash Graft. This can be commanded to call down a ring of bolts from the sky, that will leave behind the new Radiant Ground.
やば。
Radiant Ground grants a
何これ。
buff to allies standing within it and makes their hit damage.
今期は思いっきりインフレさせるつもりか。
If you're
多分そうだ
simply
な。
after damage, look no further than the erupting Zothgraft, which causes massive eruptions of fire
はあ。
which then re-erupt when you war cry. There are a total of 16 different graft types you can grow.
クールダウンタイム35秒だ
You
け
can
ど、
even unlock a second graft slot as you progress through Aelith's questline.
や
So
ば
feel
く
free
な
to
い？
mix and match flesh zone horrors to your heart's content. Now, grafts aren't just here to make you stronger. They are also your means of feeding the Genesis tree, which needs constant supplies of graft blood to grow anything useful. You can do this by defeating breach monsters, which will leave behind blood that your graft will automatically collect. When you feed this blood to the tree, your allocated passives will be put to work. This section of the Genesis tree can be used to grow new grafts for you, which the Genesis tree will then birth in a gruesome display.
ああ、なるほど。
Basic passives on the tree might increase item rarity of birthed grafts, or the chance to
2500%。
birth additional grafts. These passives can target specific types of grafts, and this passive causes grafts to be birthed with a random amount of quality.
へ
Quality
え。
improves the amount of blood that can be stored by your grafts. This section of the Genesis tree births
カレンシ
currency
アイテム
items.
ボンブ。
Basic passives can result in more or better
そ
currency.
こに突っ込んで、
Allocate this passive
グラフ
to
トブラッド
sometimes
をコスト
cause a
にして
shower
ガチャ
of
が引ける
currency
と。
to burst forth from the flesh
ア
of
ディ
the
ショナル
tree.
3カレンシ
Yeah, it's a bit gross, but working with the organic matter of a bunch of dead otherworldly
ー。オール
creatures
ボンオー
was
ブ、
never
オブ、
going to
オ
be
ーグ
a
メン
clean
テーションだ
affair.
って。オーグ
Grafts
に何か
themselves
別
are
バー
born
ジョン
of a
が。
different world, so
あ、見たことないカレンシーが
unmodifiable
たくさん
currencies.
持ってんだ、これ。
However, with this passive, the Genesis tree can occasionally grow fleshy mockeries of currency orbs. These function like augmentation orbs, regal orbs, or exalted orbs, but they work on your grafts instead of normal gear.
ああ、なる
Yep,
ほどね。
it's graft crafting.
そこ専用のカレンシーなんだ。
Allocating this passive can result in foulborn currencies. This foulborn exalted orb, for instance, behaves as a normal exalted orb, except it guarantees a higher
ファ
tier
ウルボ
modifier.
ンエグザルテッド。
By locking out a large portion of the lower rolls, a normal exalted orb would be able to hit. The largest section of the Genesis tree is used to grow rare equipment items. For these, you have a lot of agency to influence the type and modifiers on your grown item. For example, you can specifically target boots with a dexterity requirement, with an increased chance for speed modifiers,
ああ、なる
and
ほど
reduced
ね。
chance for cold modifiers. Or maybe you'd prefer to look for a two-handed axe with increased chance for physical modifiers.
お
This
ー
section of the tree is for growing unique items. Similar to the equipment section, there are passives that let you target growing specific types of uniques or rarer uniques. The process of growth is not always a perfect one, however, and can result in some defects. This passive can result in birth uniques becoming foulborn, which mutates one of the existing modifiers on the item into a new one, resulting in some interesting new ways to use that unique. For example, this foulborn quill rain no longer has increased projectile speed, but instead has increased area of effect.
は
Another foulborn quill rain could replace the mana gained on hit with the much more powerful
やば。
modifier where insufficient
あ。
mana
ユニークに
doesn't
オル
prevent
ト
your
バージョンが
bonus
で
hits.
きるのか。
Here are some other examples.
うわー、これはすごいな。
This passive even gives a rare chance for foulborn uniques to have multiple different modifiers mutated. I'm sure you'll come up with some extremely powerful uses for these. We'll leave it up to you to
ねえ。
discover what this mysterious
こ
part
れ
of
は
the
また
Genesis
だい
tree
ぶ
can
え
do.
ぐいことになってるな。
So, ultimately, you'll be slaying masses of breach monsters, harvesting blood with the aid of your grafts, feeding that to the Genesis tree, growing some
いや、
items,
まあ、
and
傭兵
grafts,
も楽しかったけど
and
ね
to。the slaughter.
バランス取るのが難しかっただろうけ
As with
ど。
all our challenge leagues,
いや、インフレするね、これはね、間
there's
違いなく。
40 challenges to pursue.
あ、まあ、通常カレンシーの方がどうなるかだけど、全体的にダメージとかもインフレしそうだしね、これ。さっき見た数値見る限りとんでもないダメージになってたな。
In 327, we're also adding a collection of new skill and support gems. Let's go over them now. Kinetic Rain is a new wand attack, which covers the
はあ、
ground in
久
unstable
々にワンドに
conditions.
新しい。面白そう。
These hazards collapse at the slightest touch, releasing their energies into any unfortunate soul who happens to be standing on them. With enough projectiles and area of effect, an enterprising exile could carpet the world in dangerous kinetic force.
ワン
Wall
ド
of
スキル
force
増え
creates a
た。
barrier of kinetic power, causing allied projectiles to ricochet towards targets automatically.
リコ
Drop
シェ
one
ット。
behind a boss and redirect the bolts of your armies. I'm sure you'll find ways to break this one. Conflagration is a new bow attack which rains down fiery bolts from above that stick into the ground and pulse as you
地面で
approach.
爆発すんだ。
Once you get close enough, these bolts detonate, causing ravaging ignites.
しかし、どれもこれもあれだな。リターンプロジェクタイルさせないぞっていう強い意志を感じるな。
Incendiary destruction. Thunderstorm is a bow attack, which creates a whirling storm of
またこれも。
lightning where it lands. While you're within the storm, it will
え、
rapidly
これも強そうだな。
violently thunderous with lightning-infused clouds. At this point, leaving the storm will cause it to detonate, dealing damage to everything within and releasing a flurry of tornadoes in all directions. Attacking with kinetic fusillade will create hovering orbs of energy. These linger for a few moments above you before zipping off to nearby targets, chaining between them, then detonating.
あ
Living
ー。
lightning support will bring to life living
2のあ
sparks
れ
of
みたいな、
energy,
インフュージョンみたいなやつ
elemental
か。
minions that zap through packs of enemies with speed and ease. Use these alongside your spellcasting to augment your pack clearing abilities, or find whatever means possible to cover the world in living sparks of ruin. Wind burst support
どうなん
unleashes
だろう
chaotic
ね。
tornadoes as you attack, which ricochet around wildly and quickly. These deal moderate damage as they travel, but will explode into a highly damaging burst when they expire. So it's a choice between scaling their duration up to get better coverage, or down to access the burst more quickly. Kinetic Instability is a support gem to go along with the new wand attacks that
Kinetic
causes enemies
instability.
slain to leave behind those same orbs of shimmering energy that Kinetic Rain creates. One might ponder just how many orbs you can create if you were to use both. In 327, exiles will be able to absorb the power of some of the bosses they defeat. These take the form of new ascendancy class options, called Bloodlines. Bloodline classes are a new means of character customization in the endgame. They are secondary ascendancy classes that are unlocked by defeating specific endgame bosses. They are allocated with your normal ascendancy points, and you'll have to choose how many of your points go into the original ascendancy and how many into your Bloodline class. This means there is a nigh limitless ability to mix and match here, as you could choose to invest just a couple points into your Bloodline, or max it out, and you could take any Bloodline with any base ascendancy class that you see fit. To unlock your Bloodline, hunt down the endgame boss whose power you desire, and defeat them, or have a friend help, and claim the power for your own. There are 10 Bloodline classes to discover. Bosses who offer this power are typically associated with past leagues, giving additional reasons to engage with that league content. Let's run over a few examples. The Chaos Bloodline will be offered to you by the Trial Master, if you manage to succeed his final challenge. With his blessing, you can greatly augment your Vow skills in different ways. Priest of Yalmak lets you use Vow skills much more often, while Priest of Kopek makes it harder to build up Vow skills, but makes them far more powerful. Or take Corruption's Embrace, which grants more Vow Keystone powers the more corrupted items you have equipped. The Ashabi bloodline can be gained by, you guessed it, defeating Ashabi. Her abilities are drawn from the 3 types of life force that manifest within as Marian spirits. The Wild Bear rewards you with adrenaline for generating rage. The Vivid Cat gives your elusive buffs a chance to refresh, as well as making you more stealthy while elusive. The Primal Owl allows your unleashed spells to reoccur many additional times, and get stronger for each time they reoccur. The Nameless bloodline comes from the King in the Mists. Be forewarned, his menacing power comes at a great cost. With the unseen hand, you can equip a third ring. But you'll have to decide that at the expense of having no amulet, no belt, or no flasks. Unlight Silhouette adds a hefty life cost to all your spells, but they deal additional chaos damage based on the amount of life spent. Of course, there is more to come. What powers might you glean from delving deep underneath Rayclass to fight all the
いや、ま
crystal
たあれか、フィリクションリーグと同
What
じで
secrets can you learn from Lycia
専用アセンダンシーか、
as you
追加
wait
で
at the end of the Forbidden Sanctum? As you can imagine, there are countless possible combinations with the system. You could be a slayer that embraces corruption and vile power, or perhaps you'll play an occultist that doubles down on their dark power by integrating the nameless bloodline. We are
い
excited
やー、
to see
サ
what
ン
crazy
リングは
fantasy
強えよ
players
な。
In the most recent Path of Exile 2
今
expansion,
期はまたフレンジーとかパワーチャージのついたリング高くなりそうだね、さらに。
fully asynchronous trade. It was
エ
a
イシンクロナスト
fantastic
レード
success.
来ましたね。
We're excited to
無人自
announce
販
that
機。
we'll also be adding this feature into Path of Exile 1. When you
でかい
reach
な。
Act 6, you'll be able to find Faustus in Lion Eye's Watch. Previously, he just operated the currency exchange. Now, he will also act as a steward for your merchants tabs. These are where you can place items for sale, for direct and instant purchase by other players even when you're not online. To list an item, simply place it in the
いいミス。
tab and select a currency and an amount. Once listed, other players will be able to find the item by searching for it via the trade website or the new in-game market search. To purchase something for yourself, it's as easy as hitting this button, which will teleport you to the seller's hideout, where you can view their merchants tabs, buy the item, and also view the rest of their wares in case something else catches your eye. Every purchase costs a small fee of gold, as Faustus takes his cut.
まあ、ここは2
To
と変わ
account
り
for
な
this
しか。
further drain on gold, acquisition and cost balance elsewhere in the game has been adjusted. Anything you've managed to sell successfully will have your profits collected here, in a separate tab to claim at your leisure.
この辺は変わ
To
り
be
ましたね。
clear,
2と。
previous means of trading, such as via pre-existing premium stash tabs and the website, will still function just as before. Merchants tabs and the asynchronous trading that comes with them are an entirely additive feature on top of the already existing methods to trade. You might find yourself needing the trade system to buy some upgrades, because this update also introduces 3 new Uber Pinnacle boss fights. These encounters are manifested from the memories of Zana, and in her long torment, they have festered into something truly deadly. These fights offer an imposing challenge, alongside powerful rewards. In order to gain access, similar to existing Uber Pinnacle fights, you'll need to discover fragments dropped by Tier 17 map bosses. Each attempt at the new Uber Pinnacle fights will require 5 of these. Let's dig into some of the challenges you'll need to face in these new Uber versions. In the original incarnation of Neglect fight, the statues can be used to block the laser beams to hide behind, giving you an opportunity to avoid being shocked, frozen, or killed. When you run near these statues, they activate and allow you to reposition them. While activated, they will not stop the lasers, meaning you want to position them well, then avoid them. However, in the Uber version of this fight, instead of being a safe haven, the statues will refract the laser beams, causing a ruckus of energy to cover the arena. Activating them will prevent the refraction, so unlike the base fight, where you want to position them well and then avoid them, you'll be wanting to constantly keep these statues active. But then, you have to deal with their assault of attacks. While fighting the incarnation of fear, these fiery orbs will slowly clutter up the arena, locking off portions of it until you bait the boss into detonating them himself with his thrown spear. When Uberified, these orbs are attached by a flaming leash to the boss, rotating around him constantly. More and more will spawn as the fight goes on, making it even more imperative that you clean them up by cleverly using the boss's abilities against him.
ここはネ
Normally
タバレ
in
す
the
るのか。
incarnation of Dread fight, during the bullet hell phase, you have to acquire a red rose, run it to the boss, then collect a blue rose, doing the same. Using it to get heavy stun,
そう
interrupting
ね。
its mechanic. In the Uber version, you have to do the same. But in order to get the blue rose, you have to defeat the incarnation of neglect. And to get the red rose, you have to defeat the incarnation of fear. Good luck. Given the difficulty of these bosses, their rewards should be worth your while. Let's take a look at some. From the Uber incarnation of neglect fight, we have Bitter
Shield.
Instinct. A spiky shield that turns retaliatory
Retaliation
strikes
skill
into
becomes
preemptive ones,
usable for
making it just a matter of time
83%。
before the long arm of justice crushes your foes. Alternatively, you might find Festering Resentment, a poisoned blade with an unending supply of toxins built into the hilt. These toxins are put to good use, causing every spell you trigger to be capable of poisoning with all damage it deals, enabling a truly crazy trigger-centric poison ruckus. And from the Uber incarnation of Dread, the Hallowed Monarch, a counterpart to the Dark Monarch, which focuses more heavily on investing into one or a few minions, rather than growing your hordes to massive proportions. Storm Rayclast, with your chosen few at your side, stealing power from your enemies as you go. We've got a number of quality of life changes to bring to 327 as well. Many of which you may have seen already in some of our pre-livestream teasers, but for those who haven't,
結構 QOL 改善多かったよな。
some players who may otherwise have been interested in the rewards it has to offer, but have no desire to
ミニオ
grind
ン
through the early
そういえば
progress of
スペクター
finding
も
and running
再召
low-level
喚しなくても
contracts to get all
復
of
活す
the
るようになる
rogues to
と
their
か
maximum level. Well,
死んでも死体が消えず
starting
に
Heist rogues
消滅せずにもう一回
will
勝手に
begin
再
at
召喚され
maximum
る。
level, so you can start your dubious criminal career without all the busy work. Points invested into your Atlas passive tree will now be refundable with gold. Just speak to Kerak to do so. For players who love jumping between strategies, there's also an option to instantly refund your entire tree, which of course can now also be done with your regular passive tree as well. Now you can make all your decisions with no regrets. Well, maybe some regrets. You no longer need to purchase bestiary orbs. You can now itemize beasts for free directly from your bestiary. From late Act 1, you can now mass identify your items at an NPC in every town, and from Helena in your hideout. This does not require Scrolls of Wisdom at all.
スクロール使わないのいいね。
While using an Alteration Orb, you can now hold Alt to swap to using an Augmentation Orb, if one is available. Opening a Blight Chest will now open all other Blight Chests near it.
これいいよね。
Rogues
ブライト楽に
disenchanting
なる。
services can now be accessed from towns and hideouts. Kerak missions now have a handy icon to show at a glance what kind of mission they are. Holding down Control and right-clicking on stacked decks will now continuously open them to your inventory, notifying you
あ
in chat
中
what
でもい
the
いんだ。
outcome
そっ
is.
かそっか。
If you still want to open them direct to the ground, to let your loot filter provide a dose of dopamine, you can still do that too by also holding Shift. Val orbs can be used on monsters and tasting essences, to the same effect that Corruption had.
そうね。今回 QOL だけで終わるのかと、お茶を濁すのかと思ったら、そんなことなかったしな。なかなか。これ便利だよな。欲しかったやつ。
Next up, I'm going to be talking about our new League supporter packs. Today, we're launching two new series of supporter packs. The Champion of Theopolis and the Verdant Magus packs. Each tier contains the pack's full face value in points, alongside several exclusive microtransactions. As always, the microtransactions in these packs are purely cosmetic and do not affect your character's power or progression in any way. The Champion of Theopolis series of supporter packs contains 6 exclusive microtransactions. Manifest a champion's ferocity, as the Lion's Might unique finisher effect rips your enemies to shreds. Open the Champion of Theopolis portal to end your crusade through maps in the style expected of a true victor of the arena. Defeat your enemies like a true gladiator, wearing the Grand Champion of Theopolis armor set. The armor awarded only to the most elite warriors of the Grand Arena. Take charge of the situation and storm into combat with the Flaming Minotaur's Quicksilver Flask effect. The Champion's Podium map device rises up to honor the glory you've achieved as you activate it. Ascend the stairs and stand atop the platform as you enter your maps. Each flame surrounding the platform represents a remaining use on your portal. The burden-back Billy Goat carries all the supplies necessary for a campsite as he travels behind you in battle. When placed in a hideout, instead of roaming around like your other pets, their supplies are deployed, creating a small camp where you can access your stash and providing a place to take a load off while you rest next to the campfire. The Verdant Magus series contains 6 exclusive microtransactions. Having Faustus sell your items on your behalf is great and all, but sometimes you just want to feel a little bit more shady about your dealings. The Back Alley Trader hideout decoration is more secretive with your trades, creating distance between you and your customers. Note that until 327 is released, this Back Alley Trader will only serve as your currency exchange. Once it's out, it will be updated to have the new Managed Shop option to also facilitate your trades. The Verdant Wayfinder pet is a loyal companion to any Master Magus. As you approach waypoints, it envelops them with its vines, guiding you throughout Rayclast. Control Earth and nature itself, as the Great Verdant Magus armor set envelops you in the ancient power now lost to time. There's also a matching back attachment included. Remnants of the forest ripple out from within you with the Verdant Magus level up effect equipped, restoring life to the corrupted land. Call on an ancient golem to use their power to create a safe passage for you to retreat through with the Arcane Golem portal. As a Supreme Verdant Magus, you can travel to your Arcane Isle hideout. A cluster of islands held together by ancient magic passed down between elite mages. Stand atop your tower and relish the great heights you've reached above those who have not harnessed the arcane. These packs are now available for purchase on both PC and console and will remain so during Path of Exile, Keepers of the Flame. Additionally, any microtransactions from these supporter packs will be made available for use in Path of Exile 2. Meanwhile, the Crypt Keeper and Frisian Magistrate packs leave the store forever at the launch of the Keepers of the Flame League, so now's your last chance to purchase them. Thank you so much for your ongoing support.
以上かな。
We're just about to start the Q&A with Ziggy D.
以上か。
Afterwards, we'll post the full patch notes for Path of Exile, Keepers of the Flame, at 11 AM New Zealand time, 3 PM Pacific. With release at the end of next week, our community team will be posting crucial information you'll need for the release. Keep an eye on the news.
あと1週間か。
Thanks for joining us today and checking out our latest developments. We're looking forward to holding off the Breach Lord's conquest, crafting gruesome grafts,
98,806 人が視聴中だって。10万人。
out our tree's tree. We hope you all join us.
よし。なるほど、なるほど。これ同時にもうあれかな、YouTube でも公開されてんのかな。あ、されてる。違った、トレーラーだ。
Welcome to the post-reveal discussion and Q&A with Jonathan and Mark, lead guys who make games. I believe was what we discussed as the
なんかアサシンリワークされてんだよね。
We're talking about how to inflate their titles in the lead up to this. 327 Keepers of the Flame, the reveal we just had there was quite a banger, but I've been even more impressed with what I've been playing here in the office.
さっき出てたスキルはあれ近接じゃないのか。
It's like a special kind of reveal day for PoE 1 fans, as I think it marks a return to schedule for us. You announced this plan to do the 4-month cycle for the games. Two changes. It seems to be working.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly hard. I'll tell
い
you.
や、新しいツリーね。アセンダンシークラスも、ジェネシスツリーも。
But yeah, I mean, look, we have to do it, right? Like, I mean, that was always the intention to get, you know, the regular schedule. It's super important. So we have to make it happen. You know, we have to make sure that is something that we can do going forward.
なるほどね。
Honestly, I'm so happy that we managed to, you know, to get everything back, and I think it helps a lot.
I think like things feel a lot less.
どうしよっかな。なんでやろう。
And things seem a bit more of a finished state as well from what I've been looking at. So.
Well, we're putting a lot more effort.
アサシン今期は増えんのかな。
You know, going well. Like, you know, we're hiring producers at the moment.
なんか毒ドットで反射して自分も毒食らってカオスドット食らうとライフ回復するみたいな。
It's something that we're really concentrating on making sure that, you know, because when you've got a schedule like this, when it's this tight,
あのアセンダンシーは追加じゃない、基本クラスの置き換えではないんじゃないの？どうなんだ？ さっきのちょっともう一回聞き直してみないとわかんないな。
So that's been, you know, real hard to adapt to. But yeah, I mean, honestly, we have to do it.
Because PoE2's 030 kind of we missed it by a week
う
or so.
ん、多分だからアフリクションリーグと同じで追加のアセンダンシーなんじゃないのかな。いやー、そうだよね。でもまあ、それ見てみないとシナジー考えてやりたいもんね。いや、これは思ってたより大きいぞ。どうしようね。まあ、パッチノート。パッチノートはまだ公開されてないな。多分この配信が終わったらかな。
We'll work out the kinks, but it was always going to be some growing pains to going to 6 releases a year for both across both Path of Exiles. So.
Yeah, I remember thinking when you guys were doing 4 releases a year that was crazy. So 6 is pretty wild, but it seems to be happening. So fingers crossed it keeps happening.
パッチノートはパッチノートはまだですね。
I don't want to. I really want to be real strict about it.
Yeah, we said we'd stick to the time
う
and
ん。まあちょっとまたパッチノート見ながら考えないとダメでしょうな、これはね。いやはや、ちょっとこれは予想をはるかに上回る。また盛り上がりそうですね、だいぶね。悩ましいところではありますな、しかし。
So, Breach 2, aka Keepers of the Flame. It's the first real direct sequel league in PoE. Now, I know we're kind of sequeling with stuff in PoE 2. There's like definitely follow-ups there, but this is the actual first true sequel league, and it seems like people are pretty keen on the idea. I think the reception's been pretty good so far, first impressions.
いや、腕はどうなんだろう、グラフツ。バカみたいに強いステータス持ってたけどな、さっき。
People who didn't like the original could then now be like, oh, I'm disappointed because you know, like as soon as they hear that it's a sequel to something they didn't like, they're like, it's not happy. So you could just be ruling out a bunch of people in your audience right away. Now, Breaches, I would say, is a pretty popular one, so like there's less danger there. Yeah. But effectively, in order to make a sequel to something, I think you really have to be doing something that had to be a real banger back when you did it, so that people actually, you know, are definitely on board from the beginning. In general, I'd say we'd prefer to do stuff that's like new, but I think this one was a good fit. It was a good example of something to do, and yeah, people are liking it. So you know,
I mean, as Jonathan said, yes, like some leagues are more divisive than others. Some have more kind of X factor out there gameplay. You know, with the whole Blight Tower defense, and some of them are more maps and a bit more crazy. And immediately you do turn off some people, and we know that going in. When we make these, we try and make it, you know, something good for everyone, but. But Breach had that just like you're just slaying hordes of monsters. You're just killing. It's the classic. We talk about reinventing the wheel. Here we talk about not reinventing the killing monsters in circles. And it has that. And by the way, that is a massive thing when doing the sequel. Is we're like we must keep the killing monsters in circle, because the last thing I want to do is, and this is another risk of a sequel, is take something that people love.
ブリーチのあれも変わってるのがまたね、ちょっと詳細見てみないと。
nine years ago, almost to date, I
え、
think.
マジですか
I think it was December 9 years ago, so we're almost
ど
there.
れど
Just if you want to feel a
れ
bit old for a moment there.
My back, ow.
I you know, and I actually still remember working on it. It does not feel like it was that long ago. I made those 5 you know, the 5 breach lords back when, and you know, put together all the monsters and
お、もう動画もアップロードされて
and
る。
I was like, what was I doing? Like we took the player characters, put some micros on them, and dunked them in red
As
paint.
was the style at the time.
You know, it was like, so it's not only been fun to come back and do a sequel, which by the way we've codenamed Breakwall, just to which is obviously a given.
オーダーオブザキーパーズ、
But
キーパーチャレンジリーグ、
coming with like 9
ジェネシス
lessons
3。
learned,
本当だ。
including you know with the all the lessons learned from PoE 2 as well, and then coming back and being like, what do we know now that we didn't know back then? And it's like, okay, let's not
Genesis
sabotage the
3
gameplay, the killing of
ナ
monsters,
ル
the
ドエタニ
killing
ティ、
monsters
サ
in
ム
the
ニング、
circle.
トゥル
And
グラフト。
let's focus on the weaknesses. And so then we looked at, okay, well, nowadays if we were to do a league, it generally comes with, you know, some character power arc. You've got some crafting system. You know, there's generally a meta system, and then that's
ソウル
that's where
テンドン、
grafts, the Genesis tree, and all that stuff come in.
モルテンツフグラフト、
Focusing on that,
サ
less
ム
of
ニング、
like,
トゥルグラフト。
you know, focusing on the combat mechanic this time around because we kind of knew that was a success.
Yeah.
And yeah,
アート・オブ・
you'll
フレー
find
ム。
that, you know, might be less trivial with some of the other contents that's a little bit more like crazy with respect to combat. But we'll see, we'll see.
I'm definitely eager to dive into like basically all of the things you mentioned there. But out of interest, what's like a league mechanic
ね。
either would or wouldn't want to see?
まあ読みますけどね。
What would be a bad
グレート・アバランチ、トゥルグラフトのスキルか、これ。
With the tower defense stuff, it's just like that would be very divisive, right? Immediately, if we said
はあ、ファウル・ボーン・フォーチューン、
immediately, a bunch of people would be like,
アンステーブル・インプラント。
I know, but a
I
lot of people
think
don't,
you'll get
right?
both ends of this. I think you'll get the most passionate people
Exactly,
wanting it,
right?
and then
Yeah,
you'll
yeah.
get the most
Albon
people hating it
Liga
on the
Rover.
other side.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
That being said, like, it isn't like, oh no, that means Blight's never getting improved.
Right.
There's differences between overhauling and improving a league,
Yeah.
and and obviously doing a narrative sequel where you kind of step away from some of it, and you know, so really here it's like yes, Blight there's so many leagues, right? And so all of them will get attention.
Albon,
Sometimes
Ashes
it's probably a lot
Viage.
similar to what we've done with Heist this time round, because honestly that might probably deserves more. And then other times it'll just be an upgrade.
I certainly.
はあ、なるほど。
Definitely not. Like, I don't think
Chaos damage taken doesn't bypass energy shield while not on low life.
we'll do it again sometime, but most of the time I think people want new stuff and, you know, different new things.
I like the revisits. I wonder. There's definitely some lore and stuff I'd like to see expanded. Like I feel like Harbinger, for example, touched on some stuff that was maybe only.
リフレクトショックサプライド to you to all nearby enemies。ああ、自分が食らったショックを周りにばらまく効果も持ってんのね。ファールボン、エシュズ、ビアージ、
Because we
ザージ。
did a you know the twisted domain and the new breach monsters in PoE 2.
Yeah.
We got to utilize the monsters. So we didn't take the bosses from PoE 2. We made full from scratch boss fights for this version for Keepers of the Flame.
コンフラグレーション、
We,
ウィンドバーストサポー
the
ト、
monsters,
キ
a
ネ
lot
ティ
of
ック
it's
レイ
by
ン。
using the models, the animations, the rigging, you know, a lot of the art side of it. And because we get to do that, we get to then focus our attention on all those other things that we would otherwise have to have a bunch of resources dedicated to. So like there's a kind of like two birds, one stone going on there where we not only got to do it, we got to do it in a more cost-effective way that allowed us to focus on other features that are going in the expansion. So, you know, win-win for players and for us in that regard. But you know, it would be less trivial with other sequels or to other leagues where we don't necessarily have all the monsters and everything made like that. So, not to say it's impossible, but it's just an interesting factor that came up that allowed us to do more here than we might, you know, if we don't forward think enough or forward plan enough. And I mean, quite far in advance, 'cause, like,
4
making these
ポイン
full
ト
monsters
か。
from scratch is not a short-term process. You know, we might not be able to do for some other leagues.
オペ
So,
ックだ。
you know, just a kind of fun internal kind of consideration that we made.
Well, like an interesting thing here as well with the fact that Breach is in PoE 2, and I
Or
don't want to
Sharpie.
get into lore, so lore warning. But I'll try and keep it as oversimplified as possible because I definitely have delved into the deep end of the lore of this stuff. But,
2、3、4。4ポイントしかないけど、こいつは。
Chayula, baddie, we fight them. like
こっちも4ポイントしか使えないのか。
And yet in PoE2 they're like explicitly not there as part of the boss of that, and also there's this lore kind of exploring the idea that they helped humanity at some point. So I'm curious if this expansion is kind of filling out the story in the in-between here, maybe explaining some of the stuff.
It 100% is. That was a huge other win we got to do here, because really there was like, okay, there's the breaches in PoE 1, you know, previous to Keepers of the Flame, and then there's kind of breaches in PoE 2 with the Twisted Domain, and it's like, wait, how did we get here? What happened? Okay, so it's 25 years. It's what's going on here? So we wanted to, given again, because 9 years ago we weren't really into the narrative of leagues and into, you know, you'd find back then, you know, we're not far from Onslaught League back then, right? It was just 20% of some stats. So, and even when we had Anarchy, there was Exiles, but like there's, you know, there's named characters, but we didn't really have voice acting for anything, you know, like we've kind of stepped up our game in a lot of delivery of that.
トリガーソケットスペル when you block.
You know, come back and go, let's establish a bit more about Breach. Obviously there's uniques and flavor text historically, but yeah, we got to establish a little bit more, add some interesting stuff to it. Meanwhile, also, progressing the narrative towards what if people are playing PoE 2C. Now that being said, if you just play PoE 2, you don't need to know all of this. If you just play PoE 1, good on you. You now know it all. You know, it's all entirely optional information to know, but yeah, you kind of have this. I mean, worth noting, you know, on the kind of Chiola arc, you know, there's a bit of like, is he good, is he bad kind of thing going on. Still to be determined, at least for the players.
I've got a cult following, but that doesn't necessarily mean one way or the other, does it?
You know, like,
いやはやいやはやいやはや、なるほどね。
what goes on in between,
Even,
but
I was reading the flavor text of the Acolyte Chiola this morning. I'm like, even that doesn't really like kind of suggests that maybe it's not a good idea to be following them, but but there's power.
but like the monastery of the Keepers of the Flame is actually where the monk trained and from PoE 2 grew up and all of that stuff. So kind of little fun bits there. People playing both games will appreciate it. It's still great. It's going to be great in either game, and it allows us to develop. So look, they're both been very fast. It's still a
じゃあちょっともう眠さが限界きつつあるから、
It's honestly been fun.
Q&A はまあこの辺にして、また明日ちょっと YouTube とかで動画が出たり、Twitch のやつもまた出たら、アーカイブみんなそっかな。はい。というわけで内容が特にないような配信でしたけれども、あれこれでもあれなんだっけ？スイッチドロップあるんだっけ？あるんだよな。はい。皆さんも寝てまた起きてマッチノート見たり、アーカイブ見直して考えましょう。皆さん、スターターは何にするんですか？悩ましいですな。何でやろうかな。今期は。自販機もあるからな。稼ぎもしやすいだろうし。いやー、本当に、ちょっとまずいですね。しっかり考えないと。3.27 はなかなか忙しくなりそうだな、これ。雰囲気的には。まあ、ブリーチ関連のカレンシーが多分高くなりそう。サイクロンか。なんか、ブレードボーテックス、ポイズンで当てるやつ、やってみようかなと思ってたけど、人気出そうだな。メタビルドになったらちょっとめんどくさそうだな。まあ、はい。ちょっと考えてみましょう。では、まあ来週に備えてね、ちょっと体調整えていかないと。はい。というわけで、おやすみなさいませ。朝早くからご視聴いただきありがとうございました。では、またまたおやすみなさい。あれ、OBS どこ行った？
been pretty big improvement, I'd say, in a cool way. So.
Yeah, and I mean, you're getting like
Deva.
stuff in Path of Exile 1 as well. Like, I've definitely seen things like that's a lot more going on there than there usually is in Period 1. Yeah.